1. A couple of weeks ago, some guy comes in. I was eating lunch or dinner, whatever you call a meal at 2 a.m. I stood up and greeted him like I do everyone else. As I returned to the desk, I asked him for his ID and a card for incidentals. He asks me if I was sleepy. I told him no, I wasn't. Then he says, "I was expecting more of a welcome at a schmayat." Not sure what sort of a welcome he was expecting, but I apologized that he didn't feel he got the welcome he deserved, and assured him that we appreciated his business. At this point, he's scoffing and just giving off that douchebag energy. So I handed him his card and asked him to insert his card into the reader, at which point he says, "Are you this rude to everyone? This is ridiculous." At that point, I tell him not to worry about it. I wasn't going to check him in. Before COVID, I'd never refused to check anyone in, but now I do at least once a week. People have become so toxic that I don't want to deal with the attitudes, the snarky remarks, the name-calling, profanity, and threats. Ownership has done nothing to keep trash out of our hotel. If anything, they constantly incentivize these types of people to stay. So he tells me he's not going anywhere, that he already paid. It was a third-party reservation, of course, so I inform him that if he calls hotels and tells them I refuse to check him in, they'll call me and confirm that I have refused him service. And they'll refund him. He says he's still not going anywhere, at which point I tell him he has two options. He either leaves or I have police remove him. He says, "Call the police, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to get my daughter." Then he goes outside, comes back with his daughter, thinking I'm going to open the door. No, I tell him over the intercom, I was calling the police, because I was done with this situation. Once he sees me on the phone, he finally leaves. The next day, I call my AGM about something completely unrelated, and he says the guy emailed Consumer Affairs, or whatever, and is making a big deal about it. I told him what happened, and I told him I'm just not dealing with the BS anymore. We all have been putting up with it, and on top of what I deal with at work, I have a lot going on at home. I'm at my breaking point. My AGM tells me that when he looked at the video, he saw that I handled it like I do every other check-in. The guy seemed to just be antagonistic. A few days after, he shows me a video the guy recorded, saying all he did was ask if I was tired, and I refused to check him in. And now all of a sudden his kid is handicapped. Fast forward to this past Tuesday night. I go in and look at the posted schedule. It was odd. One of the days I was scheduled to work coming up had me, my GM, and one of the new people on the same shift. I go and check the schedule online. My name wasn't posted at all for the next week. Me being the suspicious person that I am, I figured they were planning to somehow discipline me. So I went ahead and began filling out applications online. Also printed some copies of my resume to drop off at surrounding hotels. 7 a.m. comes and one of the new people comes in. The desk is made up almost entirely of new people. Everyone that was there before COVID has quit. My AGM calls the desk and tells me to come to the GM's office. I, of course, have already figured out what was more or less about to happen. My AGM, GM, and HR person on speaker are all in the office. I sit down and my GM tells me that this guy is threatening legal action, and that we are in the business of hospitality. That we have to be empathetic and understanding. At which point I respond that yes, my job is hospitality, but how is it fair that any of us have to deal with this constant disrespect? At which point is it not okay for that to be an excuse to be treated like crap? Every day feeling like you have to put your mental and physical well-being second or risk your job. I mentioned how our front desk is made up almost entirely of new people because everybody was sick of how these people treat us. And tired of how management and ownership doesn't do anything to stop it. Then my GM remarks about how it's not the first time I've been disciplined, referencing a time someone tried to fight me because I shut the door to the pool room, after he wouldn't stop repeatedly smacking around the balls, making an excessive amount of noise. I walked away from that person and called the police, who didn't even do anything. I then tell my GM, not only did you give that person their money back, you suspended me without even asking my side of the story. This was less than 2 weeks after the then part-time auditor was let go after he pulled a knife on a group of people harassing him. Tell me how I could have handled that situation any better. She couldn't. Only thing she could say is, maybe it's your body language or tone. Maybe? You saw the video of those incidents. There was nothing hostile about my body language, and I never yell. I refuse to ever yell, but that didn't matter. They suspended me for a week without pay. I went and dropped off my resume at a few places before going home. I felt hurt and angry. As much as I've done to help that property, all the accumulated experience and knowledge I added to not just the property, but to the company that owns it. And at the end of the day, none of that matters when up against the word of some asshole. I went to sleep, and when I woke up I informed them via text that I was officially giving them a week notice. I no longer wish to continue my employment at that property or with the company that owned it. I will say my AGM did try and defend me during that whole thing. He's always been understanding of everyone. He's been like a father figure to me, and I hate to put him in a situation where he has to work even harder than he already does. But I can't do it anymore. Even though I'm kind of freaking out over not having a consistent income, I don't have this feeling of dread knotted in my chest anymore. I'll figure out a way to pay my bills, I always have. But at least I don't have to deal with this shit for the time being. For everyone that still has to, I wish you the best. 2. My coworker Bunny was the worst part about my best job ever, and I don't think I'll ever get the answer why. My first impression of Bunny was unremarkable. She introduced herself and welcomed me to the team like everyone else. We never had extended interaction beyond that. Until the day I called the hotel so they could tell me where to park, no free parking downtown, even for employees. My coworker Lenore, who I also have stories about, gave me Bunny's phone number because she has more information. I figured this would be fine. Coworkers text each other, coworkers talk about work-related issues, right? I identified myself as a new coworker she recently met, and asked about parking information. Nothing more, nothing less. Later that week, my boss jokingly mentioned that I caused a fight between Bunny and her girlfriend because I was some random girl texting her late. It was 8 p.m., maximum. That didn't make sense to me, but I figured it wouldn't affect our professional relationship, right? Wrong. As soon as I started training under her, the way she treated me changed dramatically. Instead of the smile she had when I met her, she would only scowl. Every reasonable question about my new job was received like I was personally inconveniencing her. You'd think I just asked her to take the stairs to the roof to get a single wine glass or something ridiculous like that. Nope, I just wanted to ask how to read this report because this is my 3rd day. Sorry I'm ruining your life. I did my best to not take it personally. I hoped whatever mortal sin I had committed against her would eventually be forgiven. Wrong again. She maintained the same exact stank attitude every single shift we worked together for almost a year, and I took it, determined to not let it get to me. I felt like that's what she wanted. In fact, it made me want to be nice harder. I knew the moment I let her attitude affect me, it was over. I was still new, I didn't want it to look like I couldn't get along with the team, so I never mentioned anything to management. I saw her interacting with other coworkers I called friends, even bosses, but she couldn't let go of this animosity towards me that I didn't understand. One day it finally spilled over and affected the guests. As soon as she walked in for the shift, you could tell how pissed off she was. She stomped across the floor, yanked the drawer with the key in it open, and slammed it shut before stomping back to clock in. I was like, awesome, this is gonna be a fun shift. Some personal background. I have PTSD from an abusive relationship that almost left me dead. I've come a very long way with managing my triggers at work through medication and counseling. I was brutally honest with my employer because I could see they believed in me and wanted me to do well. What she was doing was extremely triggering. It brought me back to a place where if I heard those sounds, I was in physical danger. I got through half our shift that day without it becoming an issue, until a guest came back a 3rd time saying their keys weren't working. I was helping another customer, but my hyper-awareness noticed her let out this deep, irritated sigh before throwing the keys on the counter and making new ones. A few minutes later, the guest contacted us, asking us if this was a place he could make a complaint. I politely stated yes, I was on location and could take his complaint. He stated he had just had a negative interaction with the staff, and I told him I was going to be contacting my boss later that night about Bunny's behavior. A couple of hours went by, Bunny went to clean the kitchen. I was like, thank God, get whatever your deal is away from my personal space. I don't know what she was doing in there, but I could hear clanging and what sounded like things being thrown. This is a huge trigger, and I had had fucking enough. I emailed my bosses saying Bunny is doing things that were triggering my PTSD. I also mentioned the guest complaint about her. I told them how hard it was making my job and emphasized how important it was for me to do well for them. I knew this would lead to future face-to-face conversations between my bosses and I looked forward to that. Until then, her attitude and animosity had gone completely unnoticed. A few days later, I was on a shift with my AGM, my inspiration, and she asked me what happened the other day. I sighed and explained how hard I was working to not let Bunny's nastiness get to me. My AGM said she had no idea that there was a problem. She told me she wishes I came to them sooner, but I didn't think I would be taken seriously complaining about someone being mean to me, essentially. She asked me if I thought a mediated sit-down between Bunny and I would be beneficial. I said absolutely. I would love a chance to get answers to why she acts like this. The day came for our sit-down. I came in an hour before my shift. I noticed the AGM's office door was closed, so I figured she was already there. I waited in the hall for someone to come get me. My AGM brought me into the room where Bunny and my high-ranking co-worker, Godfrey, were. As I sat down, AGM closed the door. First, they asked me to explain what happened the other day. I did my best to provide a neutral, level-headed recounting of what happened. I don't remember exactly how it got to this point, but it was out of nowhere. As soon as she got the chance to speak, she snapped at me saying, "You always look away from me when I'm talking to you, and don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about!" My mouth fell open, and I looked over at my AGM, who also seemed surprised. I thought, yes, they're finally getting to see how she acts toward me. Also, I challenge you to find any shift we worked on cameras, and find a time where she's ever tried to talk to me. So AGM basically told her she needs to control herself, and it concluded with us both coming up with something we would personally work on. I said I would be more attentive. I don't remember if they were able to squeeze anything out of her. Regardless, they've seen what I have to deal with. I was satisfied with that one. My boss expected this to go perfectly well, and we would have a sustainable solution at the end. I hoped for the same. I don't like working like that. We were all shocked to see it go so badly. After that, I never worked another shift with her. I was furloughed again soon after because of a new wave of COVID shutdowns. I've since got a different job, but I'm so thankful that I got the experience I did there. Especially knowing Bunny gave me weekly opportunities to practice patience for 8 straight hours. If I ever go back to visit and see she's working, I'll make sure to use my middle finger to push my glasses up. Some say she still wanders the streets to this day, looking for defenseless travelers to scowl at. 3. So we have a housekeeper who's worked with us for about a month now, and she and her family are also living in the hotel. It's tough times right now, and she's being cross-trained for front desk. Pretty much the first day she started training at the front desk, she noticed the do not rent list and remarked, "Oh, how funny, my son-in-law is on here." Now, her son-in-law is a grown young man. She didn't raise him. He doesn't live with her and her husband, and apparently, he's taken up the kind of lifestyle that, well, let's just say she wasn't surprised or shocked that he was on a DNR list. She just thought it was a funny coincidence that it would happen at the same hotel she worked for. But then a couple of nights ago, she came down to the front desk and told me that she saw her son-in-law here in the hotel, going into room 202 with several other people, and that they're probably smoking in that room because she can smell it. I look at the name on 202, it's not his, and wow. Also, they paid in cash, and our manager has for some reason elected to accept a $50 deposit instead of the regular $100. I tell her, okay, I'm going to go check this out right now. "Wait," she asks me. "Can I get up to my room first? I don't want him to know that I'm here. He knows that I work here, but not that we live here. Can you not mention that I was the one who told you he was here?" Well, of course, I won't rat her out. But I don't know what this guy looks like, so if there's more than one guy, it'll be a little hard to say, "Hey, you're on our DNR list, get out," and look like I did it organically without anyone telling me he was here, like it would if I said, "Is one of you named Guest McGuestyface?" So I just kinda hope they're smoking, and I can kick them out with that reasoning. But when I get up there and talk to them, the only thing I smell is a good smell, like they're burning incense or scented candles or vaping something fruity flavored, all of which are allowed. Sure, they might be doing it to cover up the scent of cigarettes, but I can't prove it and don't want to accuse them of anything. And I also don't want to blow the housekeeper's cover, so I just go back downstairs and hope everything will be alright. Of course, I wouldn't be writing this if it had been. The next morning, the shit hit the fan. Or at least the coleslaw did. The room didn't check out at the regular time, so my manager went up to tell them they had to pay for another night or leave. Unfortunately, when they opened the door, my manager could smell the now distinctly cigarette smoke pouring out of the room. She told them she was keeping their too small deposit and they needed to GTF out now. They told her they'd just booked another night online since Thecities' rates were lower than ours, so she couldn't kick them out since they already paid. She explained that she could, and was, and thanks for the prepaid booking. Those are non-refundable and would supplement their deposit nicely. You have 15 minutes to pack and leave. Well, she then got distracted by laundry, and it wasn't until the housekeepers complained nearly an hour later that she realized they hadn't left yet. And it took yet another hour of banging on the door and threatening to call the police before they actually left. And of course, they had wrecked the room in retaliation. I'm talking they'd stolen the phone, the coffee maker, the hairdryer, the iron, and it looked like they tried to take the TV. But since it's bolted down, they'd stolen just the plug for it. As the coup de grace, they splattered coleslaw and all the places they were able to with the amount of coleslaw they had on hand. The bed, the floor, the mirror, but mostly the walls. Every single wall, and high as they could manage on each, they'd smeared it, so that it dripped down and covered the max amount of wall surface area. Since they were willing to go to so much effort, why the heck couldn't they simply have stepped outside to smoke? 4. We had a guest who called to book their room and wanted a room with 2 rooms in it and 4 queen-sized beds. We don't have any single rooms like that, but we do have adjoining double queens. That won't work. They don't want to pay for 2 different rooms, they want one suite like that. We tell them about our family suite that has a partial wall with 2 queen beds on one side and a pull-out couch on the other. They say this will have to do and request to check in an hour early at 2 p.m. We put a note in the reservation that they had requested this and let them know that the request had been made, but we wouldn't be able to guarantee an early check-in, as we only have one family suite and sometimes people check out late, with or without permission. Check-in comes and goes pretty normally for them. They tell us that they have 2 adults and 3 kids in the room, which is the maximum we can allow for this room for fire code. Kids don't cost extra, and 2 adults cost the same as 1 at our property, so no issues with adjusting rates or anything. Now comes my first interaction with this guest. The others had all been my co-workers. Guest bumbles down to the desk at about 2 a.m., not wearing a mask or shoes, only pajama shorts and a tank top. She's a 40-something-year-old woman, for context.
Do you guys have any Tums?
We usually do. Let me check and see if we still have some, since we run out a lot. I check through the cupboard where we keep these amenities. No, looks like we are unfortunately out. Most of the stuff in here we get in shipments, but the Tums our managers actually have to go to the store to get, so we tend to run out.
Okay. Looks like you have a bunch of other stuff in there. Can I get a little to go back for my daughter? I want a toothbrush and toothpaste and soap and shampoo and conditioner. Oh, and is that shaving cream and a razor? Also, I want some mouthwash and floss.
Most of these amenities are complimentary, but not all. I explained to her which ones she'll need to pay for, and she just wants the free ones. So I load all of it up into a little hotel brand name bag and give it to her.
Oh, and I have 7 kids. Can I get 6 more bags just like this one?
I'm dying inside a little bit. Yeah, sure. Let me just put those together real quick. At this point, I just want her to leave and realize she is just obviously trying to abuse the complimentary stuff. But it's a few shampoo bottles and stuff, so whatever. This is my first interaction with her, so I don't even know what room she is in, but figure she had multiple rooms since she said she had 7 kids. I know she's a guest since it's January, and there's no way she's walking around barefoot when it's 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And she came through the hotel to the lobby. I give her the bags and she wanders off. At our hotel, Night Audit prepares our hot breakfast. We are still doing it in spite of the plague, but we're having our staff serve the food to the guests to accommodate health requirements. Because of this, I essentially become a secondary breakfast attendant in the mornings, because it's too hard for one person to keep on top of serving up to 113 rooms breakfast, as well as making more of it. It's been 2 days since my interaction with the amenities guest. There is a note in our system from our managers alerting us to not give any more amenities to them. Apparently, she also came down during my co-worker shifts, but because they're new and also a 19-year-old who doesn't care at all about their job, They just gave the lady all of the amenities, including the ones that we typically charge for, and did it without charging her at all. This same day, 2 days later, the lady comes down to breakfast and asks for a few things, and the rest of her family filter down too. She has 3 kids, not 7. Her and her wife or girlfriend, don't know the status of the relationship, get a relatively modest amount of food and eat in our small section of socially distanced tables. The lady comes to the desk to talk to me.
So why do you think your managers hate us?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about.
Well, the general manager came and chewed us out yesterday. I didn't want to get in any more trouble, so we went light on breakfast today.
I'm not really sure about anything that happened between you two.
They said it's because we were eating too much breakfast or something, but I think it's because they're discriminating against us because we're lesbians. Do you think your managers are homophobic?
No. We have multiple employees here that they have hired who are openly gay or bisexual, who they treat perfectly fine. Some of our non-straight employees are probably some of their favorite people, and employees who work here and I have never heard of any of my managers saying anything remotely prejudiced in the 2.5 years I work with them.
Oh, okay. That's good, I guess.
Some backstory: I talked to my managers after this. They were irritated about being accused of prejudice. The day before, the lady had come down to breakfast and gotten 9 to-go boxes for her and her partner and their 7 kids, and had all of the boxes stacked with food. They all but cleared out her entire hot breakfast in one go for their family, plus 4 ghost children. My general manager found out and went to the room and talked to them because they aren't legally allowed to have 9 people in that room because of the fire code. He had a discussion with them and basically told them they can't lie about how many kids they have to abuse our complimentary breakfast, and that they need to stop mooching complimentary supplies past the point where they would reasonably need them. There's no reason that 5 people would need 15 bars of soap per day to wash themselves, along with a lot of other amenities. Oh, and to no one's surprise, she was a local. 5. I've worked in the hotel industry for a while, but this is my first night audit job. I've been here less than 4 months, and I've already seen enough crazy for a lifetime, but this is easily the most scary encounter I've ever had. So this was during my first month as night audit. I work for a small franchise of a big-name company with less than 200 rooms. We're right next door to a major tourist attraction that features a lot of bars open very late, including one that is literally open 24/7. It never closes. Obviously, that's a recipe for crazy. So this particular night, I'm really busy. It's around 12:30 and everybody and their mother needs something. I'm handing over towels to a family at the front desk when a massive bang echoes through the lobby. It was so loud I thought it was a gunshot. Everyone in the lobby stops for a second, and then there's another loud bang coming from one of the windows in the back of the lobby. It's foggy out, so I can't see much through the windows. Just smudges and finger marks where someone collided with the window. Thinking it's kids hanging out in the alley between our hotel and the next, I call the cops and explain the situation. The whole time, people are hanging out in the lobby trying to figure out what's happening. The banging stops. The dispatcher tells me cops are on the way, and to call back if anything changes. A minute or so after I hang up, I hear the banging again, this time around the front of the hotel near the pool. It's much louder and more aggressive, so I call the police back and inform them. As I'm on the phone trying to explain the situation to another dispatcher, a group of guests walks into the hotel. Most of them go right to the elevators, but one stops at the front desk. I can tell he's pretty drunk by the way he sways and leans against the counter. I inform him I'm on the phone with the police and I'll be right with them. He nods and waits patiently. The phone call takes way longer than I expect, and I continue to apologize to the guy at the desk. He's irritated, but continues to wait patiently as I'm describing in great detail what has been happening to this new dispatcher. I finally hang up with the dispatcher and go to help the guy at the desk. He's trying to check in. I ask for his name and ID. His name isn't in our roster. I ask if it's under a different name, and the guy starts to get really pissed off, insisting that he is a guest and that he's staying with a friend. He said he was checking in. He's slurring his words, and I can tell he's absolutely wasted. I apologize and inform him that neither his name or his friend's names are in our system. Wrong answer. The guy goes absolutely ballistic, like a bomb exploding. He starts screaming and shouting, calling me a bitch and other rude names. I have my phone in hand, ready to call the police for a third time tonight, but crazy guy has different plans. He runs full force through the sliding doors at the front of the lobby, both of them. The first set is locked. He sends both doors flying off their tracks and vanishes into the night, still shouting and screaming. The few people remaining in the lobby are just as stunned as I am. I call the police back to explain that I think I found the culprit. As I'm on the phone, a woman comes rushing into the lobby, looking scared, screaming, Ma'am, there's someone smashing car windows in the driveway!" I get that sinking feeling. My car is parked in the front driveway for safety. It's the only one out there, aside from 2 cars parked in our handicap spots. I inform the dispatcher, and moments later the cops arrive. They spend a while searching for him. I put the dented doors back on their hinges and brave a peek at my car. It seems mostly intact, save for a small dent on the driver's side. Unfortunately, one of the cars in the handicap spot wasn't so lucky. The back windshield was completely shattered, bits of glass were scattered over the front drive. Here's the kicker. This man had nothing in his hands when he came in, save for his flimsy wallet. There is nothing movable on the front drive either. The cops have no idea how he managed to smash the window. The only rational conclusion was that this lunatic managed to smash the rear window with his bare hand. Eventually, they caught him. One of the officers asked me to come ID him to make sure they got the right guy. I agreed, not realizing they would be driving me a few blocks over. I got a pat down and put it in the back of a cop car, for the first and hopefully last time, and confirmed it was the right guy. The cop stuck around for a while to help me inform the owners of the smashed car. It was a sweet old couple on vacation. My heart broke for them, as they were due to leave that morning to go home. The cops interviewed them for a long time, and I made myself busy by making coffee for everyone. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw, number 56. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Nope, no shout out this time. I have to say regarding story number 2, I think Bunny, not her actual name, I made it up. I think she was clearly shagging around behind her girlfriend's back frequently, which either her girlfriends or partner, whoever they were, was just irrationally jealous, or she has good cause to be. I suspect she probably has good cause to be. You don't go ruining people's day just because you can't keep your bits under control. Anyway, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.